All right, guys, it is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call our regular meeting for March 13th, 2025 to order. This is interesting. I don't know if you can lead us in vacation. Sorry, I didn't drop it on you like that. This is our last meeting before a pretty significant event in the town. So I'm like to just kind of pause for a brief second and think through, where we are, where we've been and things like that. So we've got a huge celebration coming up Monday night, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But having said all that, I'm going to turn things over to Commissioner Brame to lead us in invocation.
All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to meet here tonight. We ask that you be with all of our citizens who are sick and needy. We ask that you be with us as we celebrate the sesquicentennial events coming up in the next month. We ask that you be with us tonight and guide us through as we lead and do the town's business. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3 is the Youngsville Sesquicentennial Proclamation, and I will read that aloud here. Proclamation for the town of Youngsville Sesquicentennial, March 17, 2025. Whereas the town of Youngsville was incorporated in 1875 and named after John Jack Young Jr. for his generous contributions to the town, and whereas the town of Youngsville celebrated its centennial in 1975 with a week-long celebration from March 10th, 1975 through March 17th, 1975, with homages to the way of life in 1875. And whereas the town of Youngsville will turn 150 years old on March 17th, 2025. And whereas the town of Youngsville will celebrate its sesquicentennial on May 17th, 2025 with celebratory events across the town. And whereas the town of Youngsville invites the citizens of Youngsville and surrounding areas to come celebrate Youngsville's birthday. Now, be it resolved, I, Fonzie A. Flowers, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Youngsville, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim May 17, 2025 as Sesquicentennial Observance Day in the town of Youngsville. In witness hereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Youngsville to be affixed this 17th day of March 2025. Do you want me to hold off on signing that until the 17th?
No.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
I do.
Okay, well, we got, as long as I got one witness, I'm good to go. So,
We'll be presenting that throughout the
sure.
next couple of months as is.
Yep, without a doubt. Next up on our agenda, we've got a presentation, the history of the Youngsville Police Department, Officer Drew Cox. Floor is yours, sir.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Outstanding.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of my findings. Youngsville has a very, 150 years of history, and this time last year when I realized that we were celebrating 150 years, I was like, well, I wonder what I can find, police related items or crime related items, and there was nothing. There was hardly anything for me to dig up, except for a couple of old books that the chief had, which are now part of they've been entered in the project. But what I've done is on my days where I have some time, I've been searching through years and years worth of newspaper clippings and gathering them all up and compiling them, also photos and other things. So the purpose, my goal in starting with this project was to establish a written pictorial and oral historical account of the Youngsville Police Department and any significant public safety events and crimes in the greater Youngsville area, and to identify relevant newspaper stories, articles, pictures, and items for display inside the police department for public enjoyment. And if you've ever been through our hallways, you'll know that we have maybe one wall that has our logo on it. Everything else is great. So this would be a great opportunity to maybe take some of the items from the project and display them. All right, can you go back one? Thank you. It'll help the department also rediscover its identity as a law enforcement agency in our community. It'll foster greater unit cohesion and give the community a chance for positive interaction and contribution to the collection. The proposed physical displays, historical displays would consist of framed photos, plaques, wall prints, and a display cabinet. They will greatly visually enhance the interiors of the police department. So like I said, I have 150 years of newspaper clippings that I'm still currently going through. But those are some of the newspapers, and I've put some of the old headers on there for you for your enjoyment there. Next, photos. So there was a former officer who's provided some photos from the early 2000s. There are the two books I told you about. They're the mayor's criminal docket, back when we had a different kind of system of justice where the mayor presided over the town court. We have a 10-year snapshot of every single criminal court case in the town of Youngsville for 10 years, which is actually pretty cool to look back, because you do see some names that also appear in some newspaper stories. Photos and articles from the collection of the Youngsville History Museum. I can't stress enough how wonderful they have been. The ladies with the women's club, the times that I've been able to get in there and do some research and dig through their photos have been very helpful. We also have some historical equipment and curios in our supply inventory. They include old Chiefs badges, old style patches, uniform patches, an antique revolver. Those are some things we'd like to maybe put on display in the display cabinet. Photos of an old jail cell and the department calendars. Those Michael from Wicker's Clippers allowed me to come in and take pictures of the old jail cell inside the old police department, which is cool. Before we get into some of the stories that I've found, I want to just explain, like I did when the mayor presided over a town court, that was kind of a different system. We had a constabulary system back then where you had local justices of the peace, kind of like our magistrates nowadays. But they had jurisdiction for minor crimes, and they had powers of arrest. And then the constables were county elected officials that worked in a township, a surrounding area of the town, not the town itself. And then we had the town police and the town court. You should know our system nowadays is we have magistrates, we have sheriffs, and we have local police. Everything's handled in Lewisburg. So some of the major, contributing factors to our historical crime issues and public safety issues, railroad. So this town was founded on railroad. It used to be called Pacific in name, because of the railroad. The very first story that I found has to do with the railroad, but theft of goods, transporting criminals, transporting liquor. The Harry Cane, if you've ever heard of the Harry Cane, it's a section of Granville, Wake, and Franklin counties where moonshining was very prevalent back then. So there were a lot of still busts and stuff like that. Also a lot of crime that trickled into the town because of that. The Bank of Youngsville, then later the Durham Bank and Trust, had several robberies, 3 armed robberies, and at least 3 burglaries that we found. And then, of course, traffic. Everyone loves. That's one of the main subjects of late. And you'd be interested to know that they've been talking about a bypass for NC 96 since at least 1955. Okay.
That beat my estimate by about 45 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
So let's get into these are some of the significant stories I found. I tried to group them by decade. But there's 1890 to 1930. There's not a whole lot there, but what I did find was interesting. The very, very first reported crime was when the railroad warehouse got broken into and sugar and tobacco were stolen. I don't know how those two go together, but they were commodities that were well worth something back then. So in 1906, a Youngsville resident captures an escaped fugitive with the help of reading a newspaper article in the News and Observer, and his young daughter, who saw the man walking by, who she apparently also knew the description given in the paper. In 1920, infamous local Harry Cane bootlegger and accused killer Bud Davis assaulted our chief. You see him right there. That's the very first photo of a chief that I have in 1904. But 1920, he was assaulted by Bud Davis with an iron bar, and he shot up the town after a botched arrest attempt during a liquor bust. One of the most striking stories of this whole project that I found is a justice of the peace, J.R. Pierce. In 1927, he was very much against Harry Kane and the Moonshiners. And so he deputized his 17-year-old son to go out on a liquor bust with him in the dead of night. So instead of calling one of the constables to help or town police, he deputized his 17-year-old son, who was likely also really interested in law enforcement. But he was deputized that night and unfortunately was shot to death by the suspect when the deal went bad. So he in turn was killed by the elder Pierce, who himself was wounded several times in a gunfight as well. Hugh Pierce lived several years into the 40s. He was actually shot again in another robbery at his local store and survived. But Hugh Pierce may possibly be the youngest sworn law enforcement officer to be killed in the line of duty in North Carolina. I'd be interested to go to the archives and try to see if there's any other reference to that, because that could be very significant. He's buried just a few feet away from where John Young Jr. is buried down by Country Brook Lane and South College Street. In 1934, Officer J.B. Young shot in the hand. He was wounded in action while responding to a disturbance at the Massey Farm on Tarboro Road, which was just outside of the town's jurisdiction at the time. The suspect was arrested. There was, in the golden age of flight, an airplane, likely a military airplane, inbound to Norfolk, crashed nearby, and Officer J.B. Young responded. A crime that likely shook the community. Ursel Pierce, 24 years old, shoots her husband during a domestic violence incident in 1948. And after a long battle in the hospital, he succumbed to his wounds. While he was in the hospital, he basically said that, it wasn't her fault, that everything that he was doing contributed to it. But she was put on trial for murder and acquitted later. 1949, Janeda Wheelis. Okay, this is a great story. This is the genesis of radios being put in patrol cars. This could be the first story of the radio contributing to fighting crime in law enforcement. Janeda Wheelis, he robbed the Durham Bank and Trust on Main Street, which is now the Hair Vault. He got away with $5,000, but is caught 30 minutes later after the State Highway Patrol radio dispatch put it out, and Wake County deputies heard it on the radio in their car, found the man, and made an arrest. In 1955, the same bank was robbed again, but with the same teller as the previous robbery. The thief stole over $3,100. And then again in 1955, a couple of young guys stole $1,500 in an armed robbery, but was quickly caught after the mayor's son, Wayne Pierce, witnessed their exit from the bank and jotted down the plate number. Also in 59, the same bank was burglarized overnight. The inner safe, if you ever been in the Hair Vault, the inner safe is very, very stout. It's inside the vault. The vault itself, you see the door right there, it got cut open. If you ever go in the Hair Vault now, these days, you can actually see evidence of the repair that was made there. And you can also see the really sturdily built safe on the inside. 1960 to 69, the post office boxes were broken into in 1966, and Social Security checks were stolen. 3 bandits were seen burglarizing the bank and trust at 1:30 in the morning, and a group of teenagers actually followed and reported to a highway patrol trooper what they saw, and the suspects were later arrested. So anyone keeping track, that's Youngsville area youths 2 and bad guys 0. An armed robber in 1969 stole $1,500 from L.W. Pierce, clerk at the corner store at the following home. Cool anecdote that I found here. This is a warning out of Boston that made it into the paper about driving with your bell bottoms, that you might want to roll with your bell bottoms so that they don't get tangled in the brake or the accelerator pedal. In 1972, the very first radar training for the department, and they immediately put up a speed check by radar sign, so everyone knew about it. But that was a cool picture. Keep going. This is a great story. Miss Lily Baker, 92 years old, walked away from her care home, which was on the edge of off of Tarboro Road somewhere. But 2 helicopters, one from the North Carolina National Guard, one from State Highway Patrol, citizens on horseback, helicopters, bloodhounds were all involved in the search and rescue, and she was found just fine and returned later. It was just a cool story. And there's some cool pictures too of then Chief Jackie Stroud standing nearby as a helicopter was landing. It's pretty neat. Talking about the Centennial earlier, found this photo of a mock jailhouse, very similar to the one that might have been in the town. And then there is a hand-drawn map of where the jail or the guardhouse would have stood in that time in 1875. Back-to-back murders just outside of town, one at Bud's Tavern in 77, and then the same bartender that did that crime, or he ended up being let off for self-defense, but he then later at a bar right across the street, apparently called someplace else, shot another man who was charged with murder. 3 young people, unfortunately, lost their lives in a train-related accident on Main Street. If you talk to the man at BP Mechanical, he believes that there's some sprites there and it might very well be related to this. He's got camera footage of like orbs and stuff going around his office, so maybe a spook story there. The milling company burned down in 1981. Arson was suspected. It was investigated. And then on the funny story in 85, there was a complaint for an angry beaver, and it took the game warden and the Youngsville Police Department to find a solution. But a dog got bit on his way out. There's a lot of cool anecdotal stories in there. I've only hit on some of them. But this whole collection is over 260 pages of newspaper clippings. Then there's still more to go through from the 90s to today, actually back to like the 70s and Wake Weekly. I think one thing we need to do is announce to the public that we're seeking more materials. If you know, this is a great way to do it. If any of you know anyone who's related to the police department or took a lot of pictures, historical photos and stuff like that, we're looking for those sorts of things, and we can add them into the collection. So the newspaper timeline, which you'll see an example of here in a minute, I've basically digitized it, scaled it to a regular paper size so that we could actually display it in the hallways of the police department. So you can actually start at one point in 1875 and walk the hallways and walk the whole timeline. But what would be great is if we could scan it and make it searchable, so that we could also keep it online and people can go to that link and search for their family's name or date and time. And we can upload those onto the town server. So there's a bunch of, like this display ideas that we need to do, and then acquire some quotes and materials. This is an example of the newspaper timeline. What I've done here is I've actually compiled them, they're all in chronological order as they were discovered. And then I've also added in some period correct ads and a lot of local ads too. There's the Brown Furniture House heater ad that you see on that one page, just so that it looks and reads like a newspaper as you're going through the timeline. Estimated cost for a vinyl printing, this is just an estimate I got off of a website, was about $1,000 for 265 pages. I also got a quote from Woodmaster, a local company. This is just an example that they drew up. That particular price quote was $59.98, but I know there's lots of commercial options on the market. But that would be a great opportunity to partner with a local business. A picture of each chief for the command hallway would be a good thing to add to the collection, a little 5x7 photo. These are the photos that I have collected so far for each chief, and more hopefully will be coming in as people begin to submit more items. And then a plaque with the names of each chief, just one big plaque, the year and the name would be fantastic. We could also put that entire timeline in a 3-ring binder. So if people want to come in, the lobby is open to the public. We'd have our display cabinet there. They can thumb through the entire newspaper timeline. Also the mayor's dockets. It would be great to do that as well with those so that the originals don't get torn up. And then a large photo album binder for all the photos that we've compiled. I'd like to thank Chief Whitley for his support, and also the Women's Club of Youngsville, the Youngsville History Museum. If you ever have a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. City Manager Nathan Page, thank you very much. Emily, thank you for your help on this project as well. Michael Wicker from Wicker's Clippers, Ron Atkins, former YPD officer, current sheriff's deputy, and Hairball. So with that, if there's any questions or comments.
That was a very interesting and fun stroll down memory lane. The Angry Beaver story, just that one got me pretty good. I do have a question. The very first Youngsville police vehicle was a Mustang, correct?
If it's not.
The horse, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yes, sir.
All right.
I think there's room potentially in the fleet for a new Mustang.
Okay. I like the way you think. I like the way you think.
Yes, sir.
No, that was very detailed. We appreciate that. I love the idea of having the wrap, so to speak, around the PD, because historical stuff like this always intrigues me. And again, it kind of points to where we were, right, versus where we are now. Hopefully, in 150 years, there's no stories about me or my son having to try to catch criminals. But no, this was very in-depth and we appreciate it. Any questions, comments from the commissioners?
It's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up on our agenda, we've got one public hearing. Item A is an annexation petition 2025-1 Youngsville Academy Charter School LLC, their western acreage. I will go ahead and open the hearing to the public as of 7:22 and turn things over for staff report.
Again, this is the property that was donated to the Youngsville Academy after we did our original annexation. This is just cleaning up that extra acreage between the academy and the Rolling Meadows subdivision. All paperwork is in order and good to go.
Okay, so essentially housekeeping. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. And having heard that, I will go ahead and open the comment section up for any comments from the public. Do we have anyone in our vast audience that would like to make a comment? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and close the hearing as of 7:23 and move along into citizens' comments. Madam Clerk, did we have anyone who signed up for citizens' comments?
No one signed up.
Okay. Do we have anyone in attendance who would like to make a citizens' comment? All right, hearing and seeing none, we'll move along into the consent agenda. And do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 8, old business. Item A is adopt annexation ordinance 2025-1, Youngsville Academy Charter School LLC, Western Acreage. The action requested here is to approve annexation ordinance 2025-1.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries unanimously as well. Item 9 is new business. Item A under new business is presentation of annexation petition 2025-2, Town of Youngsville Holden Road acreage.
So this is acreage that Holden Creek Preserve donated to the town, and so we're just annexing our property. It will connect Holden Creek Preserve to the Conyers property, and it will make the town contiguous almost to Capitol in that area.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving along into item B then, resolution to direct clerk to investigate annexation petition 2025-2, Town of Youngsville Holden Road acreage. Action requested here is to approve the resolution.
Move to approve resolution.
Second.
All right, we got a first, second, and a third. Is there any discussion prior to calling for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? That is approved unanimously as well. Item C, presentation of certificate of sufficiency for annexation petition 2025-2, Town of Youngsville Holden Road acreage.
Yes, the paperwork is all in order. The deeds are in our name. The town manager has the authority to sign our annexation petitions, and the survey was done by Holden Creek Preserve. So we use theirs, but everything is good to go.
All right, thank you for that. Having heard that, moving along into item D, resolution setting date for public hearing on annexation petition 2025-2 for April 10th, 2025, Town of Youngsville Holden Road acreage. Action requested here is to approve resolution setting public hearing for April 10, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, carries unanimously. Reports and other business. Yeah, like I said, I mentioned earlier, very excited to kick off sesquicentennial on Monday, March 17th. It'll be our birthday. Congressman Knott has already given a speech on the U.S. House floor to notate, the brief history of the town and some of the things that we've done here as far as like having, people wanting to be involved in moving to this area, which I think was outstanding. We appreciate his acknowledgement there. Casino night, super fun once again. Looking forward to Saturday's 5K at Yacht Club Beverage House. Not looking forward to the running, but looking forward to all the events that are happening that day. So Commissioner Red, thank you for being the point person to make that happen. I was honored to speak at the joint banquet for Youngsville Fire Department and Youngsville Police Department. It was a great night honoring those that continue to protect and serve and just do a tremendous job in our community. We met Tuesday with DOT Secretary Joey Hopkins and Representative Winslow on how to keep pushing for funding for our bypass. It was a very in-depth meeting, understanding kind of like some of the hurdles that we have to continuously jump through and what we can and can't do up until that point. But obviously the takeaway is we're going to keep pushing forward until we can make that a reality. We talked about March 17th, March 18th. I think the majority of us are going to spend the afternoon with Representative Winslow at the state capitol to be honored in the House and the Senate. Really looking forward to that one. I think it's going to be a very fun day. And the amount of support that we get out of Representative Winslow in all things Youngsville related is tremendous. So big time thank you to him for everything that he does for us. I feel like I've spoken enough. If I have forgotten anything, I'm sure the commissioners will keep me honest, and I will go down the line and start with Commissioner Red.
Yes, sesquicentennial stuff is so fun. There is a 5K on Saturday. It's only $25 and you get a shirt and a free beverage from the yacht club. So I feel like that's win-win. We already have 125 people signed up. We had 200 plus last year and a ton showed up the morning of, and the weather's supposed to be fantastic. So yacht club opens at 9 a.m. because leprechauns drink early. Race is at 10:30 and I'll be there all day. There's bagpipes at 2. There's all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah, it should be really good. I'm looking forward to all the events this year. Thank you, Emily. That's all I have.
All right, thank you for that. And Commissioner Percy?
No, I think we're good today.
All right, Commissioner Brain?
Today is my oldest son, Jack's birthday. He's turning 13, so we officially have a rotten teenager now. So,
The fun's just beginning. brother.
yeah. Campo meeting next Wednesday, if you remember, last month was canceled due to weather. We do expect to hear about the results from the toll road study for Capital One, or US One Capital. We have a 2:00 meeting that unfortunately I can't attend, but I believe Nathan Page will be attending in my absence, and I will be there for the executive board meeting at 4:00. Are you going to stay for the 4:00 or?
If you're there, you represent the town better than I do.
Okay, all right. So looking forward to seeing what the results of that study are and seeing how it can impact our region. So Wake Forest and Youngsville as well. And I believe that's all I have.
All right. And Commissioner Wiggins?
I'm good.
All right, thank you, sir. Turning things over to our esteemed legal counsel, Ms. Katie Barber Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. No public business to report.
All right, and finally, staff, I'll start with Mr. Page.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to Chief Whitley if we're willing to let him go first.
Thank you much.
The guy's carrying a gun. I'm not going to tell him no.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, sir.
So in light of our 5K coming up, happy to report we'll be fully staffed and have officers on deck for that event that day and plenty
Thank
of
you.
volunteers coming out. So looking forward to a good event. Considering the relative low crime rate we enjoy, I'm surprised that Youngsville has such a storied criminal history. In that light, as most of you probably know, in early February, we had a short rash, fortunately, of breaking and enterings in one motor vehicle theft in town. That was on February 18th. And those folks got away with a vehicle and a trailer and some construction equipment that were all associated with having found some keys in the vehicle. So they were able to make off with that pretty easily. Fortunately, most of the other items that were taken were small items and, not of considerable value, but still a significant occurrence nonetheless, if you were a victim of that crime. But I wanted to say thanks to our citizens that provided the video Ring doorbell footage and other associated CCTV imagery that they had. And especially thank you for passing along what you had, Commissioner Brain, from your neighbors there. Happy to report that led to some arrests over in Durham. It appears that a group of individuals working in concert were either stealing those vehicles where they could find them easily accessible with the keys in them, or taking other items from the vehicles, taking them over to Durham and fencing them over there. They had at least 12 vehicles stolen from the Raleigh-Durham area, and we were one of the last ones to be hit. So I'm sure they'll have some additional arrests in that case because, again, it was several people that were working in concert to, in some cases, it appears to ship some of these vehicles out of state up north and potentially even get them overseas. So we'll see where it goes. If I have any pertinent updates, I will let you know. Having spoken to Chief Christmas earlier, he sends his regrets that he wasn't here tonight. But I wanted to speak in kind with him and on his behalf, as well as the behalf of the fire department and the police department, to extend our gratitude to everyone that was in attendance at our first annual awards banquet the other night. I thought it was a success. We had really good attendance. I think everyone there had a really good time. And most importantly, I'm happy to report, and I think I can speak on behalf of the officers and the firefighters that are there, and having been in this profession for about 25 years now, it is refreshing to have an event, and without a better way to say it, to actually appreciate your commissioners and your mayor and your town manager being in attendance. I got a lot of positive feedback from those officers and those firefighters, and they really appreciated you being there as well as I do.
Sure.
Chief Christmas as well. So thank you very much.
Think of that,
Thank
Chief. Like I said in the meetings, it's an honor and a pleasure. You guys do tremendous work. So we really do. Thank you for everything.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Page.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The meeting tomorrow for the budget will happen in this room at 11 o'clock.
How did I forget that?
That is open to the public, but is infrequently attended due to the riveting nature of the material. The meeting with Secretary Hopkins, Representative Winslow, as you know, is the reason that we were able to sit down at that table and have that discussion with him. And they are working diligently to try and find resources to get the bypass to the next step. And so it's nice to have partners that are working at the state level to move that project forward as quickly as possible. In that same vein, Mayor Flowers and Mayor Pro Tem Brame were present for another meeting where we discussed downtown Main Street and particularly the rapid rectangular flashing beacon. And town staff has been auditing times to determine when it would be most appropriate to hire out a pedestrian count for meeting NCDOT's warrants to install a rapid rectangular flashing beacon at the crosswalk by the 10 Pig and Sharon's. That should be happening sometime pretty soon. I had two questions to ask the board with, and maybe there's not a good answer for them tonight, but they were points that we can discuss. The first is, I was asked today for the first time to have a name for the bypass because our projects are far enough along that it's weird to call it the bypass at this point. At some point, it should be Highway 96, but it won't be Highway 96 until the railroad crossing is done. So the Cedar Creek straightening part may be built in the next few years. To call it 96 might be a little premature if we're still 10, 20 years away from the highway overpass, the railroad overpass. So it would be nice to have a name for that.
Spitballing?
We can also discuss it later.
I think that's one we need to sit down and think, because I hadn't even.
I was gonna say, are we just about to start brainstorming? What's happening here?
We could name it after one of the esteemed officers or a story or whatever, but you're welcome to shoot me emails and we can bring it up in future meetings, whatever works. The other item that I had was in concert with our sesquicentennial, if we wanted to ask the state to put up a historical marker on US 1, there's a variety of items that we could ask for that would be potentially noteworthy. The one that I saw that struck me today was the fact that potentially the youngest officer in the history of North Carolina was killed in Youngsville in the line of duty. And so I think that's probably a noteworthy event that's of statute that has statewide significance. If there are others, you're welcome to shoot me an email or we can discuss them however you guys want to handle that.
Did you not like my idea, what I said? I mean, the longest running Christmas parade. I mean, come on. No.
We get two ideas on them.
Well, and then you've got some state championship ballers in here too. So, no, I do like that idea though. Okay. So we'll just probably just shoot you some ideas via email, both with the naming of, the bypass as well as, I mean, Sesquicentennial Highway. It's just kind of ringing a bell. Obviously,
Could you imagine typing that into Google?
gee, the Buck Fitty Highway. Okay.
Well,
No.
150.
It is good to be able to think through that and brainstorm. I didn't realize that, until Officer Cox had mentioned it, going back to the 50s of when it was first actually kind of like thought through astonishes me, because I was under the impression it was like 1990-ish. So interesting. All right. So you've given us some homework. Do you have any additional things to report tonight?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you for that. Anything from this side of the room?
So I've met a few different people in different circumstances who talked about Officer Cox and how nice he was to work with and his diligence getting this history together. And I think, nothing goes to saying community policing and developing that relationship with our community, and having an officer out there really setting a good example and making those relationships. And like I said, unrelated people, different times and places talk about how great he was to work with. So I can't commend him enough.
Awesome. All right, Madam Clerk?
Nothing.
Nothing? All right, before we jump into the next piece, though, I do want to say, and this is going to be an ongoing theme, obviously. We've got sesquicentennial meeting tomorrow. And just preemptively want to extend my thanks for everyone who's both been on that board and submitted ideas and things like that. As we've noted here in the minutes and in the resolution, the town 50 years ago did a week-long celebration, which I'm sure at the time was an amazing thing. It was super cool. We've thought through going through like a quarterly basis to have larger celebrations throughout the course of the year. So again, I'm just very excited about that. We can't pull these types of things off though without tremendous support. So just thinking through some of the folks that are in here, Jim Moss. I know we've got some of the folks from like Marion Company helping us out with selling some of our sesquicentennial items. Emily, you've been an amazing point person to help out with that too. Commissioner Red, thank you for your diligence with the race and just being a sounding board. And Mr. Page, thank you as well. So that is not to leave anyone else out of the equation. I'm just really looking forward to a year-long celebration to really honor our town, the people in it. The cool factor is, to me, this is the best place to live in North Carolina. And I don't say that kind of like out of the side of my mouth. When I say that, I truly mean it. So having said that, we do have some other business to take care of in a closed session environment. So item A, under closed session, North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3, attorney-client privileged. We will need to go into closed session for that. So I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Move to go into closed session.
All right, got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote?
Yeah. Can we take a break right between?
Yes, I'll let us take a break and then we'll go for there. So any additional all right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are now in closed session, 7:42. Bad. No action was taken. Now, thank you for keeping me honest. with
Yeah.
that. I just totally biffed on that one. Okay.
Is that the right one?
I got it. This is the actual resolution right here. That was the suggested motion.
Okay. All right. I move to adopt the Town of Youngsville Board of Commissioners resolution authorizing acquisition of the remaining right-of-way for the Eastern Youngsville bypass by condemnation.
All right, so we got a first. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. I will sign that resolution before we leave. That leaves us. Where in the world? Did you take my paper, Corey?
No, we have cat steak up here.
Make sure I.
I'll make a.
Yeah, good.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Second. Got a first and a second. Any discussion before we move to vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned 8:48.
It's like.